What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video, I'm going to be going over the difference between intelligence and intellect. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the difference between intelligence and the intellect, right? So I'm going to be going through a full metaphysical breakdown between intelligence, people that are intelligent, that are more on advanced divine intelligent level, versus a person who is more on the intellectual side. So I'm going to be going over those differences in this video. So let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get started. So let's dive into the intelligence aspect, right? So intelligence deals with all three planes of existence, right? The mental, so we got the mental, we got the physical, and we got the spiritual, right? So we as human beings, we as spiritual beings having a human experience, being spirited beings, encompassing and embodying and being inside these physical vessels to experience this 3D realm, to experience this 3D reality. We as spiritual beings, we as spiritual entities exist within all three planes of existence, right? So if you are more into, metaphysics. You try to understand the metaphysical aspects of certain things. If you're, a very conscious person, if you're a very curious person, likes to think outside the box, who is more creative, who doesn't like to deal with the normal, logical, intellectual type of things or information, we understand that we exist on all three planes of existence. That's the mental, physical, and the spiritual. Right? So the mental, we all know the mental plane is connected to the spiritual plane. Right? And same thing with the physical. All of them are connected. Okay? So we don't have just these brains. These brains that we have aren't the only things that exist within our mind. They aren't the only things that exist within our consciousness. So our brains are, more complex than we think that they are. Right? It's not just this brain that exists in here. What people say now is what consciousness exists in the mind. Consciousness exists in the mind. Right? So we know that we exist in all three planes of existence. So the people who, the intellect deals with the mental and the physical, right? So you ever notice that when intellectuals, you see them on documentaries or TV shows, they do certain experiments, these extraordinary people or extraordinary phenomenon, and they say, they rely on things that they can see, right? Because science is only catching up to what the ancients have already taught us, or what the ancients have already, been doing for the last thousands, millions of years, right? So I remember there's this documentary that I was watching. It was this Indian breatharian named Prahlad Jani, right? He's been a breatharian for, they say, for over 70 years. So he's been, going throughout life without eating and drinking for 70 plus years, right? Taking in the sun, breathing in the sun, eating the sun, because that was his life force, right? And so these scientists, these researchers, these intellects, before the experiment, they didn't believe it. They said, oh, this is impossible, or I simply don't believe this is impossible. We can't go, a certain amount of time without food. We can't go a certain amount of hours or days without water, right? So the intellect, who is all based on, perception and, visuals, like if they can't see it, then it didn't happen, right? If they can't see something with their physical eyes, then it didn't happen, right? But we all know that, everything is spiritual. All this is an illusion. We live in a matrix. Right, this is a series of events that never existed. We live in a holographic physical matrix. Everything in this physical world doesn't exist. right? And the ancients, the Yeshua, Buddha, Tahuti, all these different individuals who have performed miracles, they were able to manipulate this physical reality, right? Because why? Because they're connected to all three planes of existence: the mental, physical, and the spiritual. So what we think of as miracles, what we think of as extraordinary phenomenon, it's just manipulating energy. It's just manipulating the third dimension. It's just manipulating the third dimensional realm, right? And utilizing the spiritual realm to create things, using the spiritual realm to download information, using the spiritual realm to prophesy, using the spiritual realm uh, to do all these extraordinary things, to do these spectacular things that the normal average person will say is, a miracle, or is, like superpowers or things like that. When we existed as gods and goddesses, we were doing this type of stuff all the time. Just now we have been so disconnected with our inner power, with our spiritual powers, that it just seems extraordinary to the average person now. So intellect deals with the mental and the physical. So they leave out the spiritual because, like I said, some things that people do, some things that, like, certain gifts that people have, like I mentioned, probably like Johnny the Breatharian, this everything that deals with the spiritual you can't see, right? Everything that you can see is not real, and everything that you can't see is real, and everything that you can see is not real. I'll repeat that again. Everything that you can't see is real, and everything that you can see is an illusion. Always remember that. All right, so when we existed as gods and goddesses, we utilized our divine intelligence to navigate the world around us, right? So what is this divine intelligence? What are these things that we have used to navigate the spiritual realm and to navigate the physical world when we existed as gods and goddesses? So this includes extrasensory perception. And these extrasensory perceptions are things such as telepathy, clairvoyance, intuition, etc., etc. Right? So we used to use telepathy to communicate to each other. Right? Higher beings in higher dimensions, they don't speak in human terms. They don't use human language to speak to each other. They use telepathy. And we used to do this. We used to communicate and speak to each other telepathically. We used our consciousness. We used our minds to communicate to one another. But since we were genetically modified and genetically manipulated, our telomeres were manipulated and all these sorts of different things. We have lost these abilities. We have lost these capabilities. But unless we reprogram our DNA, we can gain some of these gifts back. When we reprogram our DNA to our full potential, we can unleash and to utilize these gifts that God has given us, that God has blessed us, these spiritual gifts. Right? Clairvoyance, such as clairvoyance, intuition, ability to prophesy, having certain visions, dreaming, and all these sorts of different things. We had utilized all these things to navigate the world around us. So when we fell and became physical beings, we relied on our intellect and our five senses to navigate the world around us. So when we fell, when we became when we encompassed these physical bodies, right? When our spiritual centers have shut down, when our pineal gland has been, calcified and all these sorts of different things, we start relying on intellect. We start relying on, logic. Start relying on logic, reasoning, analytical thinking, sight, taste, touch, the five senses. We start relying on all these things to navigate the world around us. And the intellect deals with the conscious mind. And when we utilize only the conscious mind, we're only utilizing 10% of our entire mind. We're not even utilizing our mind to our full potential. And that's how they're able to control us, right? With certain foods, putting chemicals in the food to control our minds, teaching us the wrong history, teaching us the wrong information in schools, just dumbing us down with the fluoride in the water and all these sorts of different things. We have been so dumbed down as a people. We have been so manipulated and mind controlled as a people. We aren't able to utilize our higher sensory perception gifts. Right? When we unlock these gifts and these capabilities within us, then that's when we start to see the world in a totally different way. That's when we're not able to become controlled by society, be controlled by the news and the media and all the lies that's been spreading across the world. We're not controlled by outside external entities and forces. Right? When we develop that power within us, when we unlock our DNA, when we open our third eye, have a calcified pineal gland, all these sorts of different things, that's when the magic happens. That's when we start to realize who we truly are, as powerful gods and goddesses, right? So when we fail, we start to rely on our intellect and our five senses to navigate the world around us, right? So a decalcified pineal gland unlocks the true divine intelligence, right? Certain things that you can do to decalcify your pineal gland will be, meditation. Meditation is a great way. Getting sunlight, getting vitamin D, grounding, reading books, right? Reading books and gaining knowledge and being so submerged into this type of knowledge and learning more about yourself and, unlocking your mind with new information and new knowledge and, taking you to a different world, bringing you into this rabbit hole of knowledge. That's a great way for you to, stimulate your mind and to decalcify your pineal gland. There's so many different ways and so many different things that you can do to decalcify your pineal gland, right? So it's very important for us to do that, right? When we do that, that's when we unlock that divine intelligence that we all need to strive for, that we all need to, grasp and take hold of. So a calcified pineal gland keeps us from attaining that divine knowledge, right? So when we have a decalcified pineal gland, we can't experience all three planes of existence. Like I said in the beginning, we all exist within the three planes of existence: the mental, physical, and the spiritual. So most intellects, you hear, most intellects don't believe in God. They don't believe in the spiritual realm. They believe in the Big Bang theory and all these sorts of different things. They look at the spirit realm and they look at things that are beyond our comprehension, things that you can't see, as things, maybe like mere fairy tale. That's why they have separated spirituality and science, right? The world has separated spirituality and science, when in actuality, spirituality and science is supposed to be one. They're all one. They're all in the same. Right? They have done this on purpose. Right? I'm going to make a video on this soon. This is what the ancients knew. This is what the ancients utilized. This is what the ancients harnessed. They harnessed the spiritual technology. This is spiritual technology that we're talking about. We unify the spiritual with the science. That's spiritual technology. Right? They're able to use their spiritual gifts. They're able to use their conscious mind to harness that spiritual scientific technology, right? It was all one. So we have, they have separated spirituality from science. And that's why it's important for us to bridge that gap and to bring science and spirituality back into one, right? You see a lot of people doing that as of today. So spirituality and science are supposed to be one. They're all in the same. So intelligence harnesses the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious mind. So I'm not saying that, the intellect is bad or, utilizing the conscious mind is bad. God is logical. God is, the language of the universe, the language of God is mathematics, right? We all, utilize the conscious mind throughout everyday lives when we're, solving problems, solving mathematical problems, coming up with, solutions and, navigating the world around us. We use our conscious mind on a daily basis as well. So it's all about harnessing, like I said, with the mental, physical, and spiritual, it's all about harnessing the conscious, subconscious, and super consciousness. Right? The conscious deals with, like I said, logic, reasoning, analytical thinking. Subconscious deals with your emotions, your habits, your thoughts, creativity, all these sorts of different things. Super consciousness is when the conscious and the subconscious combine together in harmony and in unison. And that's when you start to develop that divine intelligence, right? So intellect only deals with the conscious mind, 10% capacity. Like I said, when you're only utilizing the intellect, when you're only utilizing the intellectual mind, you're only utilizing 10% of your whole mind. You're not even operating at your full capacity, right? Like there's so much out there besides this physical reality that it's incomprehensible. It's anything that we can't even imagine. We can't even imagine what's out there beyond the universe, the multiverse, the omniverse, right? So when we're only utilizing the conscious side, the conscious part of our mind, we're only putting ourselves, at a low capacity. We're only hindering us from reaching our full potential to achieve that super conscious mind. So it's all about, harnessing and achieving that super consciousness, right? With the help of AI and artificial intelligence, it's helping us, come together as one, helping us, see reality in a different way, helping us, seeking one within consciousness, right? So all of us, have different perceptions on life. All of us experience life in, this reality in many different ways. That's what makes all of us unique. But I believe that with the internet, with technology, with AI, with science, spirituality and science coming together again, I believe all this helps us to unify and to help us look at ourselves and to look at reality in a totally different way. And by doing this, it creates a very peaceful, loving, harmonious planet that we're going to experience in the future. Like people always say, we're going from the 3D to the 5D. So there's no more of this slave race, this slave planet, manipulation, lies, misinformation, all these sorts of different things, because AI can be distorted in so many ways. Science can be distorted in so many ways. Reality can be distorted in so many ways. So once we elevate the collective consciousness, once we, raise and shift the overall vibration of the planet, that we can, have a people, have a nation, have humanity come up and rise up to a new destination, to a new frontier, to a new planetary shift, right? And like I said, these things such as AI, technology, science, spirituality, all these different things are helping us see reality in a totally different way and improving and shifting the planet in a positive direction, into a positive light. All right. So there you have it, guys. This is a video detailing the difference between the intelligence versus the intellect. Hopefully you guys have learned something more from this video. I could have gone a little bit deeper into this video, but I just wanted to give you a little quick synopsis on the difference between intelligence and intellect. It's important for you guys to know the difference between the intelligence and the intellect. So hopefully this video helps you, look at yourself differently, change your mind, do certain things differently, if you're into consciousness, if you're into learning, if you're deep diving into spirituality and esoteric occult knowledge and all these sorts of different things, hopefully this will help you understand the power of your mind, because your mind is very powerful and you are very powerful as an individual. So it's important for us to achieve that super consciousness and to elevate ourselves every single day. Because like the first principle within the Kemetic principles, the all is mind and the universe is mental. And don't forget that. All right? So till next time. And always remember, all power resides from within. And always keep the faith, because God in the universe is always working for you. Take care, guys. And God bless.